to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with two very special guests. Our first guest today is Diana Cole, and she's here to share with us Truth for Creating Well-Being. Now, Diana is a spirit translator, thought leader, and author. She's passionate about spirit guidance, teaching people how to access it for themselves so they may find freedom from pain and limitation and live a life of abundance, fun, and inspiration. Diana offers her empowering tools for spiritual guidance in group settings, speaking engagements, and her vibrant Instagram and Facebook communities. So let's welcome to the show, Diana Cole.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
What an honor it is to have this discussion with you. And I'm so excited we get to do this again. And I think for a lot of our listeners that spent time with us last time, you really look at spirit in a different way than I think most people do.
Yeah, I think I do. I learned at a young age what spirit meant. And I think my definition does differ from the traditional, theory.
So what inspired you to work in this area?
Well, I was really inspired because I went through, a painful period of my life, which included, I believe adult bullying and betrayal. And along with that came the failure of a business that I owned. And I was a single mother at the time. So I felt like sort of everything was crumbling in on me. And the only thing I could do to pull myself out of that terrible time was going back and talking to my spirit team.
And it's interesting because a lot of times people don't think about doing that, is making that connection with their spirit team when things go sideways.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately it's because most of us haven't learned how to do that. And I think that's really the main reason why people don't do that. And I think that's really the catalyst for what I'm doing now. I want to help people learn how to do this for themselves so that they can pull themselves out of these really tough life moments.
So when you connected with your spirit guides and your spirit team, was it something that was easy for you to do? You've been doing that since birth, or is it something you had to work with?
Yeah, it was really easy for me because I learned how to do it at 4 years old. So my whole childhood, I was doing this and I just figured everybody was. It didn't seem strange to me. It felt normal and it felt like a conversation that I was having with anybody else. It was just another conversation. And I put that aside when I got older and stopped doing it until I got to this point in my life where I felt like it was time to go back to my spirit team because there really wasn't anywhere else to go.
Yeah, reconnect with them and see how you can move forward. And so I know you help many people connect with their team as well. Is that something that takes a long time for them to do, or is it something that they can kind of work on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's something that I think is very easy for any of us to do. But what has to happen first is we have to release some barriers. And the first one is belief. If you believe that you have invisible guidance that is here for you, that is inside you, that you are connected to, it is a lot easier to access that wisdom than it is if you're somebody who doesn't believe it's even possible.
Yeah, it really kind of gives some thought there because it's all about changing that perspective. And then that's where the magic happens.
Exactly. And yes, it's something that can be practiced on a daily basis or just, a weekly basis or whenever you feel like you need to have, sort of a internal counseling session.
So I know a lot of times, when people think of, we talk about spirits, we talk about mediums or people who channel, they start thinking about, okay, this could be talking to my loved ones that have passed. How is your work different?
Yeah, so for me, it's not about talking to loved ones who have passed, although you can. The wisdom that we are seeking when we're talking to what I call our spirit team is, a sort of a higher energy of not an energy that is born and dies. It's almost like a higher level of energy. It's God energy. Some people call spirit God. or, infinite intelligence, or, whatever their God is. And it's the same energy that I refer to as spirit.
We've talked about like perception being one of the things that holds people back. Are there anything else that kind of keep people from really being able to make that deep connection?
It's kind of interesting. Some people don't feel like they're worthy of a conversation like this sometimes. Like they don't. First block is usually belief, and second block is, am I worthy of a conversation with like a God energy, right? And how would a God energy, why would they want to talk to me? So that's usually the second block, is really just self-value and knowing that you do deserve it and that it is here for you and it is your right to have internal guidance.
So if someone's feeling like, I'm not worthy enough to connect with spirit, how do you work with that person?
Well, I start talking to them about the fact that they are worthy of having this conversation. And then we go into a whole session on self-talk, and improving, self-talk is something that's really important with improving our lives. Improving the way that we see the world is related to how we see ourselves.
So you help people, we're kind of talking about just helping people to learn how to hear and receive their own guidance. Tell us a little bit about how that all works.
Yeah, so some people call it intuition, and I think that is sort of the first sort of step, right? Intuition to me are the signs and signals that we get every day. It's that little voice inside you that kind of makes you feel like you should do something or you shouldn't do something. It's the pit in your stomach or the butterflies, right? And that is your first indication that there is some sort of intelligence or wisdom that we can access even further if we take the next step. So what I encourage people to do is to take that next step almost past intuition, right? And to get very still, to have this belief that it's here for you based on the fact that you've already experienced intuition. It's built in all of us. And then know that you're worthy of having this conversation and that it is here for you and that it's here for everybody, that we all have a right to this conversation. And then I teach them the steps to going into almost the meditation to get there.
It sounds just like such an easy process. And I'm sure that's why you're so successful and your book has been so highly successful, is because people are looking for a way to make that connection that isn't taking like 5 years,
Yeah. And in my book, chapter 11 is really about how to do it yourself. And it isn't, it's one chapter worth of material that does walk you through how to do it. And people are successful with it.
So I know in your book, you share the 7 truths, and the one that's always kind of inspired me is number 1. Thought is action that creates your life. And I'd love for you to expound on that for our listeners, because I think a lot of times people think of thought and they don't relate that to action.
Yeah, well, the action of thinking, right, is an action actually. And the most important action that we do in the creating of our lives, because we do create our lives with our thoughts. And when, the book is all about basically the first, the 7 truths are the counseling that I was given to pull myself out of this horrible time in my life. And that's why that's included in the book. The first, section of it is, here's the wisdom I was given. Here's the counseling I was given. It wasn't for me. It was for everybody. We should all follow this wisdom. And then here's how to do it yourself. And I thought that, the most interesting for me was the first one, which is about positive thinking and about knowing that the thoughts that we think in our head are so important. It's not just, a conversation between us and us when we're having thoughts. It's our ask. It's the way that we look at the world and the way that we perceive the world, and the thoughts that we create around those things create our lives. So if we can start looking at creating the thoughts first and then looking at the world around us, we really start seeing a different reality start shaping for ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting how that all happens with thought, and it's really shifting that perspective. And I know you are a positive thought warrior. What does that mean? I know our listeners are going, okay, what is that? I think I want to be one. So what is that?
Well, when I was sitting and doing this work for myself and having my conversation, I was told, you need to become a positive thought warrior. You need to use your positive thinking as your shield and your armor against whatever you need to fight against in your life. So instead of looking at the world as something that you need to deal with, all you really need to do is build this shield and this barrier of positive thinking around you. And it doesn't matter what happens out there anymore.
Yeah, it's really about that positive thinking. Is that like one of the number one things that you see people get stuck on too? Is that they're just stuck in a negative, kind of almost like track?
Yeah, I think we all are. And I get there from time to time too. So I have to rein myself in almost on a daily basis. And if I have to do that, and this is the work that I do, then I know how hard it is for everybody out there. We're taught, think a positive thought and you'll be happy, or you've heard that before. And it doesn't work. You can't think one positive thought and be happier. You have to reframe the way you are thinking on a daily basis, and you have to do the work. And it's a practice. It's as hard as being on a diet or knocking an addiction. It's hard, and it takes time, and it takes effort, but it's so worth it because your life does change when you start thinking different thoughts.
Yeah, you can really make those very powerful changes that, and it's interesting because a lot of times people think, well, if I change my thoughts, that's not really going to do anything, but it's really the basis for everything.
It is. And, I'm so passionate about it that I just released a children's book called Alina, the Positive Thought Warrior, to try to teach children from a young age the concept of positive thinking.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm sure little kids are loving that because it speaks right for them, And so I know also in your book, and we're not going to go over all of them, but with your 7 truths, you talk about how spirit is speaking to you always. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I've heard people say, well, you know what? I can't hear my spirit guides. They're not talking to me. I'm not connecting with them. What do you say to those people?
I say it's time to get still enough to recognize the signs that are around us all every day. I was just thinking to myself 2 days ago that I cannot believe that my life is so full of signs and signals that I recognize now. They become stronger and more extreme as time goes on. I'll wake up at 2 a.m. and look outside my window, and like there'll be a light show outside that doesn't make sense to me. Or I'll be, sitting in my room alone and the door will close. And these things sound kind of creepy, but they're actually not. I feel like I'm being spoken to on a daily basis. And I know that we all are. I know that we call these things coincidences, but coincidences to me is spirit, signs from spirit.
I think that is actually very interesting. I've had that happen to me once where a door opened and no one was there. So it was like, well, thank you. I appreciate you opening the door.
Yeah. These things happen to more of us than we really talk about, honestly. Almost everybody I talk to, and almost everybody, will tell me that things are happening to them sort of like this, but they don't talk about it because it seems kind of scary or weird. The thing is, we don't talk about these things because they do seem a little ghosty and weird, right? But it's not scary what I'm talking about. It's about the fact that you can even think about somebody and all of a sudden they call you. And that's not coincidence. That's a sign. Or you think about something and all of a sudden you'll see it come into your world, right? Like you'll think about a certain bird, or you'll think about a number and you'll see it on the license plate, right? Or, these signs and these signals are all around us every single day. Or have you ever just been somewhere and like had a smell come, like you smelled something that smelled like somebody you knew? These things are out there. We just have to get still enough to recognize them because we can move past them very easily because they're often very subtle.
Yeah, just really pay attention to what's happening around you. And I love how all these synchronicities really start to click together and make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you start connecting the dots that things are happening that are what we call coincidences, and you start seeing that, like, maybe these are signs, maybe this is a signal, then they start becoming almost stronger or a little bit more rapid. So you start seeing more and more of them, because really what the invisible world is trying to do for us is make our life experience better here. They're really trying to help us. They love us. And it's a love energy that's out there that we all have access to. And And really, it's about trying to improve our lives. It's not supposed to scare us or shut us off from what we have a right to have access to.
I know you say no pain equals no pain. What
Mm-hmm.
is that all about?
Well, I started saying that because when I owned exercise studios, I kept hearing, no pain, no gain. And I kept thinking, wow, what a terrible, thing to believe, right? Because the truth is that pain attaches to pain, negativity attaches to negativity, and positivity attaches to positivity. Like attaches to like. And when you're in a pain cycle, when you're feeling pain, you tend to, through thoughts, exacerbate that pain or make it more prevalent or see pain more in your experience. So, for example, if I'm going through an emotional, situation that's painful, let's start with that. And I'm sitting and thinking about how painful it is, and I'm talking to people about how painful it is, and I'm talking about how sad I am or how upset I am. All of those things start replicating and you start feeling worse. But when you start talking to yourself about the things that you love in your life or about how grateful you are for the things that you do have or the things that you do enjoy or the things that aren't painful, you start feeling better. And it's because our thoughts are like thoughts attached to other thoughts that are like them.
Yeah, and then you start attracting more of that into your life.
Exactly, because we do attract or repel with every thought we have in our head. Whether you like it or not, you are attracting what is coming into your life, or you are repelling what you want to come into your life with every thought you think.
It's so interesting with your background. It was almost like you were born to do this work, because I know your father was also in the business of teaching lectures and training.
Yeah, my dad was, I think, one of the major pioneers of the New Age movement in the 60s and 70s here in the Bay Area. He had his hands in a lot of different pies over here. He was a psychiatrist, so he was a doctor, but he was also, he co-wrote the Hoffman Process and worked with Werner Erhard on EST, and was friends with the Edgar Cayce family, and was friends with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and Muktananda, who was here opening the Siddha Yoga Institute in Oakland in the early 70s. And I was exposed to all these people and their ways of thinking. And I traveled with him when he was speaking for, ARE, which is Edgar Cayce's association that carries on his messages and has speakers also travel around the world. And my dad did that. And I just thought, this was all just what everybody thought. And it didn't really seem like anything I needed to talk about until my life fell apart. And then I realized, oh my God, maybe I should go back to all of those things I learned. And that's really what inspired me. I think that, my pain was my gift. And I do teach that our pain is our gift. It pushes us to do the things that we really should be doing here and the things that we value.
And if we look at that, our pain as being our gift, we can then start to look at what are we supposed to learn with this and what is it bringing to me?
Yeah, because my pain actually completely shifted my life trajectory. I was doing something totally different. And when I got to this point of despair and I went back to what I learned, I realized, gosh, like if I forgot what I learned, then how are people getting along in the world that never learned it at all? And so now my mission is really teaching as many people as possible how to find, this self-soothing, how to find your internal guidance so that you can get pulled out of any, negative situation and feel better, feel like you're back on track and that you're on purpose.
As a little kid, learning a lot of, different things from your father, you must have just been soaking all of that up.
Yeah, it was strange. Like every conversation that we had my entire life was rooted in this, because this is really what he lived. And I learned a lot. And I feel like now it's my turn to pour it out because it's all really good, and it really helps and it really does transform your life. I went from, a single mother with failing businesses and really no money to support myself to completely turning every single aspect of that around. And it happened pretty quickly because I followed the 7 truths and I went back to, the guidance I had learned. And it really does transform your life when you let it in.
Do you feel that your work is like a living legacy of the work that your father did?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like I'm taking the baton and carrying on with it.
Oh my goodness. It must make you feel so good as you're working with people and helping them see that there is another way to look at things and to view life and to actually live.
Yeah. I think that we're all living a lot more painful lives than we're supposed to. And I think that we get stuck in painful, situations and feelings for too long. And, as a total consciousness here, when we all feel the heaviness of pain, it makes all of us, even though we don't all know each other, it affects all of us. It makes us all feel just a little heavier. So each person who learns how to feel better helps the total. So, I try to imagine sometimes like what it would be like if every single person on the planet was happy for 5 minutes. What would it be like? The total consciousness of our planet would shift. And it's because we aren't taught how to feel better in a real way when we feel really bad.
It's like people really didn't get those life skills taught to them like you did.
Right. And I didn't realize how lucky I was until I needed to use them. I ignored them. I sort of pushed them away and was like, yeah, that was cool. Time for me to move on and have my life. And I didn't even realize how important they were until my life fell apart. And that's the thing. If I can teach people that these things are important and not to push them aside, I think that we will have a much better experience here. And I think our children will too, because they'll see that in us. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about writing a series of children's books. I'm actually writing them with my daughter to help teach children from a young age a little piece of all of these things I'm teaching to adults, so that they get sort of just their feet wet and they start realizing that these terms and that these, practices can help them.
And also that it's possible to do anything at any age. I mean, I'm sure she's going, gosh, I'm writing a book with my mom.
Yeah, well, to her, this is all just kind of course, right? Because she learned from my dad also. She's 18 now. So she had a lot of years with him, and she's closer to his teaching in a way than I am because she's younger. So we're taking everything that we learned and we're going to turn them into, the series of books for children. And then, of course, I'll continue releasing, books for us adults to read too.
Yeah, we all need that wisdom, I'll tell you, So what do you believe that would benefit most people from the work that you do?
Well, honestly, I think that the most important thing to learn is how to rehab your thought processes. And, that's a first step, right? Truth one is the most important step, is learning how to think your life better. That's really the first step here. And that is, in a way, the step that will make you see the most changes the most quickly.
Well, especially during this time where, people have, they're losing their jobs, they're looking to reinvent themselves. It's almost like they've hit that place that you were at when you, decided to use your tools and wisdom.
Yeah, I look around and I see a lot of people in despair, and I know what that feels like. And not exactly, there's a lot of people who are in a very deep despair that I won't ever understand. And there's other people who, feel really bad for reasons that, we've never experienced, but it's all the same emotion and it's all the same feeling that's not good. And we can all feel better. I've gone through watching people pass, and I know how hard that is. And, we're still meant to be here and live a full and happy life, regardless of the people who are coming and going. And I know that's so hard to grasp and even to hear sometimes, but it's true. We are meant to be here and have a full life, and enjoy what is here for us.
Yeah. I mean, we really, and I believe you, I really feel the same way. It's after reading your book, it's like, gosh, we're not here to suffer. Although that might be a path, we're really here to express life and live to the fullest.
Right. I always tell people, you were not meant to come here and suffer. That was not the plan. The plan is not, you're going to have a terrible life this time around. That's never the plan. The plan is, you get to have a life here and you get to experience what you want to experience, and you get to have as much fun as possible. And we're just not embracing it that way, most of us. And I get it. I wasn't either.
So I know you mentioned earlier that people get stuck. So what advice do you have for the people who are just feeling like they're stuck and they don't know what to do next?
Well, I think that the best advice is knowing that they can change things around, and it's, one thought at a time. The more you think about what you don't like, the worse you're going to feel. And when you can just look outside your window and appreciate, what you're seeing outside, when you can just appreciate a few things in your life, or hold on to something that you enjoy and think about that for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, every time you feel bad, you can pull yourself out of that stuck feeling pretty quick. And the more you practice it, the more unstuck you get.
I love that. I think that's such a great thing to do because, it's so easy to get stuck. And what a great way to kind of shift that energy and move in a different direction.
Yeah, the thing that is interesting is it almost sounds too easy. And when things sound too easy, sometimes like people will say to me, like, that sounds too easy. I don't know if it'll work. And the thing is, it's supposed to be easy, and it does work. But it takes time, and you've got to dedicate 5 or 10 minutes. I promise you, if every single person walked outside and just spent 10 minutes thinking about how beautiful the outside was, the nature around them was, for 10 minutes without letting any negative thought about their lives seep in, just look at beauty for 10 minutes, you feel so much better.
My goodness, Diana. We could talk for hours. I just love your book, Spirit-Translator, and I can't wait to hear more about your children's books. Where can our listeners connect with you, learn more about your work, and be part of your community?
They can connect with me online. My website is dianacole.com, and then I'm on Facebook and Instagram at the Diana Cole.
Perfect. So they can reach you anywhere. Well, Diana, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Diana. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about truths for creating well-being. Again, if you'd like to connect with Diana, you can at dianacole.com for more information. Her book, Spirit-Translator, is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. You'll want to stay tuned for our next special guest, Mandara Cromwell, who's here to share with us her new book, Soundflower, The Journey to Marry Science and Spirit. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our next special guest, Mandara Cromwell, who's here to share with us her new book, Soundflower, The Journey to Marry Science and Spirit. Now, Mandara is the founder and board president of ISTA, which is the International Sound Therapy Association. She's the producer of Cymatics, the Science of Sound and Vibrational Healing's annual conference. She's the president and CEO of Cyma Technologies, Inc., and the 2013 nominee for the Thomas Edison Award for Innovation in the Field of Science and Medicine. So let's welcome to the show, Mandara Cromwell.
It's great to be here with you today, Marianne. I'm very excited to share with you and your audience.
You know, what an honor it is to have you here and to not only talk about your book, but your work. And I have to ask you, what was the first time you heard angels or were given permission to hear that?
I grew up, the first time was when I was a child. I grew up in the Midwest in a rural community, and my family attended a Catholic church that was Gothic-style architecture. And there were beautiful paintings of angels on the ceilings and saints and angels in the stained glass windows. And their halos were printed or painted with these little signatures that when the big pipe organ would sound, they all danced and moved. And it seemed they were talking to me. And as a child, I would tug on my dad's suit coat to point something out to him in this magnificent architecture. And one day he leaned over to me and said, "You won't be able to hear what they're saying if you keep talking." And so that was my first instruction, actually from my father, that said, hey, pay attention. You're getting messages here. Now, did he mean the messages from the angels, or was he talking about the officiants of the Mass? I don't know. But for me, it was, all of those amazing geometries that were appearing, before my eyes. And of course, the sound of the pipe organ would just bring it all to life and, resonate through my body. And I, of course, thought everybody else was having the same experience that I was having.
Well, I was so impressed by that account because you do see sound in such a unique way. And I love how you bring that in together with just how therapeutically it can help the body. When did you first become involved in that whole world of therapeutic sound?
It's been a life journey, Marianne. From college, I studied philosophy and was really intrigued with Eastern philosophies. And so went to India, and there I found another type of resonant architecture in the Indian temples and how they were created with specific mathematical logarithms that would create these spaces that, you could feel the sound, particularly when, there was chanting or prayers being said within that. And so when I came back to the United States, I actually taught meditation in a meditation center. And it was in the year of 2001 that I became aware of the work of Dr. Hans Jenny, as a Swiss medical doctor and natural scientist. And he was using, in his lifetime, he left us in 1972, but he was the first person to use modern technology to make sound visible. Because, we see light. We have telescopes that show us the stars, and we have microscopes that show us the cells at our physical level, but we can never see sound. And suddenly this opened a whole new world for me, because I thought, wow, I can actually tell people that there is a way to see sound made visible, and that healing sound has a specific geometry. And it was shortly after that I met the British osteopath, Dr. Peter Guy Manners, who, out of his respect, named his device a cymatic therapy device with regards to Hans Jenny's work. So they were simultaneously doing work, parallel at the same time. And he, Dr. Manners, and his collaborative group had researched frequency patterns as they correspond to the physical body. So it wasn't just one frequency that helps support your liver or specific organ system. Is a combination of 5 frequencies. Well, when I heard this, it was like, this is the same thing back in the churches and temples when the sound is created. It's like a quintet that's being played for that specific part of the body. So it made perfect sense to me. So I've actually been doing research with this particular type of sound since 2001.
I love reading your journey that you took, just your spiritual path and where it's led you. And I just have to think, meeting Dr. Manners was really kind of a pivotal point for you, it seemed.
Extremely pivotal. Changed my life. You're going down the road one day and suddenly you make a right turn and you're in another world, or suddenly you find your destiny, takes a curve. And it's just been so rewarding, so fulfilling to investigate, not only coming from the spiritual, mystical part of sound, but also seeing where science is now proving what we all innately know. And, in the cathedrals and temples, we have an experience that this is something special. But then to see it in a microscope, or today we have the CymaScope, which makes sound visible, to bring all of that together, it's my life's vision to marry science and spirit.
Well, I think you've done that very well in this book, especially when you go to each of the chapters and there's a picture of the different sounds. And I love how that all comes together.
Marianne, it's really interesting seeing those images are actually of a specific healing code that is from my device, and it's to support the etheric sheath. So for those who are listening who are familiar with the energy bodies, so we have the physical body and we have the subtle bodies. The etheric sheath is just right next to the physical body, and it's like the blueprint that we come with that keeps everything energized. So to keep and fortify that particular body is very special. So those are the images that I chose to share within the book. And so these are like slices of that same image of these 5 frequencies playing at the same time. And when we see these, science tells us that we process these visual components in a different part of our brain. And I've done some pilot studies with these images and actually created a whole sound meditation called the Soundflower Experience, where I've tracked groups of people who are watching this and looking at these particular images every day for 21 days, and how it creates new neural pathways to strengthen our mind and also our body. And people will tell me, gosh, I feel like I know this symbol, I know this image, but I don't know where from. So I believe that we're innately drawn to what heals us. And so thank you for appreciating the images. There are a lot of people who have looked at the book and resonate with those images and have given us great feedback.
Yeah, I can see why. My goodness, it's quite an undertaking. And so when you mentioned your device that you made that helps people, why don't you share a little bit about that with us? How did that come into being?
When I first met Dr. Manners, he had a device that, looked a little bit like a clunky VCR player, if you remember what those look like, with the keypad on it, and an applicator that you would apply at different parts of the body. And so his technology has a lifespan where the parts become obsolete and we need to recreate the new evolution. And so I met him at a time where he was ready to create the next evolution, but he didn't have anybody who he could work with. So I, mentioned to him one day if he wanted to bring manufacturing to the United States, I would be happy to help him with that. And he agreed. And so we set forth on that path. So I created a device that was similar to what he had already been working with, but I realized that people were having a really difficult time utilizing that device. They would have to hold the applicator on their body at a given point. In my life, I have studied in depth Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, and these are the two oldest medical systems that still exist today. In those systems, there is a lot of therapies that have been coming through the millennia, really, of how important the portals that are located on the bottom of the feet are. So in Chinese medicine, we have meridian points that begin in the feet. And in reflexology, if you've ever had a good foot massage, somebody has touched on a certain point that may have felt a little tight or tense, or maybe even a little bit of pain, and needed to massage that a little bit. So those are the points where sound can be easily taken up into the body through the meridian channels and distributed. The body is innately aware of where that sound needs to go. So that's why I named the series of devices Acoustic Meridian Intelligence. Acoustic because it is audible sound, meridians because it uses the meridian pathways, and the body's innate intelligence knows exactly where to take that sound. And so now people can just sit in a chair and put their feet on the AMI 750 and have a 30-minute session. It's so easy to use. And I just love the feedback that people are giving us.
That's so impressive. And so when you have people that are using this device, are they using it for like stress and pain?
They are. Within the United States, we adhere to all the FDA guidelines. And so in this particular case, this is a Class 1 device, which means you don't need a prescription to own it. And we're allowed to say that we relieve stress and pain. And if you think about it, everybody is stressed out and has some physical or emotional pain somewhere. Even people who contact us who have a real health challenge, such as the autoimmune or cancer or the neurological conditions of dementia and Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, etc. Really, what is the common thread of all of those diagnoses? The common thread is stress. It's a part of the body, and wherever your weak link is, that's where it will show up. So it's a very stressed out part of your body. And if we can help you relax and come to what we call a neutral state, then your body relies on its own intelligence. The body strives for homeostasis and that perfect balance. So we just need to calm everything down, relax it, and start to unravel that complex web that has kind of gotten out of whack due to the condition of being overstressed.
Now, is this something that people can use if they know something's off, but they don't know exactly what's going on with them?
They can. What we are experiencing today is a lot of people are trying to fortify their immune system. So they're using the device preventatively. They're using the device whether they realize that they have some constriction in the emotional field or the psychological, mental stress is huge right now, as well as we're trying to fortify our immune system. So if we can get to a very relaxed state, then all of those body systems can operate at their optimum level.
So what are some of the techniques? Are there like different techniques that are used with this machine, or people use it on their feet and it works just in the different places of their body?
It does. So applying through the feet is a really great place for everyone. And most people sit in a chair and have their 30-minute session. And a lot of people own their own device, but there are different integrative medical practices who that they have devices as well where people can go for sessions. And you can lie down on a massage table with your feet propped up on it, or if it's in your own home, you can, support yourself on your bed or your sofa and receive the sound in that way. And all of the protocols, we have protocols for stress relief, for musculoskeletal pain, for inflammatory pain. And the inflammatory pain is a really great one because chronic inflammation is everywhere in our society. So stress produces a lot of cortisol, and that, it's great to have that when we're being chased by the tiger, right? But the place where we are today is we don't really thrive in the sympathetic system. So if you're doing things that are causing you great stress and you're always living in the sympathetic system, part of the nervous system, then, that creates a lot of chronic inflammation. So the channel that is for inflammatory pain really helps to release that. And we have some studies on the website that you can take a look at if you'd like to, particularly I use thermal imaging to track results. So thermal imaging is looking at the vascular activity in one place that it is said by many healthcare professionals that disease begins in the mouth. And so if you think about it, our oral cavity is one of those areas where we're always drinking or chewing something. And of course, when we're all at home, sometimes we get just coming off the holidays, we have more sugar and sweet foods, and these create biofilms on the teeth. And if you don't, take care of that very quickly, a different type of bacteria begins breeding. And if you've had any crowns or bridges, cavities, those types of places breed this extra bacteria. So it's really important to keep that clean. What happens is that when it does get out of control, then you can see the inflammation process in the oral cavity. And this is shown, in the research page of my website. So what we find is the inflammation can travel through other parts of the body and affect weak links there. For example, we have women who've been dealing with breast cancer, and you can actually see the inflammation travel that meridian that's associated with those teeth all the way down into the torso. And many times when, they clean up their hygiene in the dental cavity, or if they've had a root canal or something like that, when they've gotten that taken care of, then the body burden is lessened greatly. So that's one way that we use sound to help calm the inflammatory process. When your body's in inflammation all the time, chronic inflammation, then your digestive process isn't working very well. Your immune system is overtaxed. Your neurological system, your nervous system is always in fight or flight. So that is one way that we can actually show the amazing impact of sound physiologically on using this very targeted sound approach of the AMI 750.
Yeah, it's interesting when you hear that people have excess inflammation that affects their motor process. They're a little bit slower. They may forget things. So it's interesting how this can really impact people and their body altogether.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand, Marianne, that this is a different type of approach to sound. We're not destroying any pathogens or going at it from that perspective, because a lot of times people will say, I'm having this symptom, let me go to the doctor and get a prescription for that symptom. What we're doing from this approach to sound is we're creating the support system, the structure, because see, the body is very intelligent. It knows how to deal with the problem if we help clear away all of the, say, stagnant constriction. So it's very important to understand that this is a sound that's generating relaxation and supporting the structure, kind of creating this scaffolding that people can, adhere to on their journey back to optimum health.
Do you hear that people say they have better sleep and they're a little bit more relaxed when they start using this?
They do. As a matter of fact, sleep is one of the very first things that they report. Excuse me, we have a person whose wife was suffering from Alzheimer's. And after the very first session that they had, he called and he said, wow, we were both sleeping last night. He said, we haven't had deep sleep like that in ages. Because he would have to keep an eye open for what is she doing, going out into the kitchen and cooking something at an odd hour of the night. He was trying to care for her at home. And so sleep was a really and tremendous blessing for them. We have people who have digestive problems, and particularly in, the corporate settings where, this is very stressful time. And they'll say that they finally relax because when you're really stressed out, your body is not sending its energy into the digestive tract. And if you keep eating, then that's piling up while you're still in stress mode out here fighting the tiger, whether it be psychologically, mental stress or not. And so a lot of people will say their digestion starts to relax, even just using the stress relief protocol.
How impressive is that? My goodness. You love that. You love hearing that. And what if someone's a skeptic? They're like, well, I don't know if this is really going to work because I can't, maybe see, hear it, whatever. Do you get a lot of that?
Well, we do. And we also get the question, why doesn't my doctor know about this?
Yeah, I'm sure.
This is first of all, you have to understand this is technology that is coming from Europe. And in Europe, they have a different way that they approach medicine. Many times they have more of a natural, common sense, shall we say, approach, a grandmother's approach. I remember being in the clinic in England and someone coming in with an upset stomach, and the physician there suggesting, how about some apple cider vinegar, to help with the diet, to use something we would call grandmother's or old wives' tale as a first approach, as opposed to, a drug that would cause a side effect. So when we look at sound, it is very much out of the masses because we can't see sound. Right now, there are hospitals throughout the world that are using ultrasound. I know that's a different bandwidth, but they are using ultrasound for pain relief and to pulverize kidney and gallstones. So when people realize that, oh, okay, so they are using, sound in that way. And also there's a lot of study out there using ultrasound for Alzheimer's. And right now this is just in the laboratory and they're only doing this with mice. But when people hear about that in the news, suddenly it makes sense to use a device that's emitting audible sound that could possibly help. So yes, we do have some people who are skeptics, but in a short period of time, they become believers after using the device for just a few weeks.
I don't doubt that. It's interesting just the journey we take towards health. And a lot of times it is the very, like the grandmothers, the really basic stuff. And, it seems that Europe seems to have that a little bit figured out better than sometimes than we do.
And I think what's really encouraging, if there could be something, if there is a silver lining to the pandemic issue, is that a lot of people are beginning to ask questions about how can they fortify their own health? What can they do within their own little realm of daily living to help themselves and their families? And so we have a lot of people who are saying that they're planting gardens and they're eating more natural foods, and they're not going out to the fast foods, etc., as often as they used to. And so that's a good thing. People are looking for, I always tell my family, garlic is nature's antibiotic. So we are moving back to or the pendulum, I feel, is switching a little to taking a look at these more natural and common sense remedies.
Yeah, that makes just perfect sense when you think about it. And when you look at the just what happens with sound therapy, it's pretty much open to any kind of ailment that people have, or are there limitations with it?
In this particular case, it is open because we're using audible sound. When you go to ultra or infrasound, those are different bandwidths of the sound spectrum, but we're using audible sound. So you can hear these sounds that are being generated from the AMI 750. We do, even though we worked with many pregnant women in the clinic in the UK, we ask people who are pregnant to wait until after they've delivered their baby to come for their sessions. And basically that's just, we're in such a litigious society. I will say we've helped a lot of people get pregnant with infertility issues. And then also in marrying the sound with modern technology, anyone who has an implanted device, such as a pacemaker or a defibrillator, we need to keep the AMI 750 at least 6 inches away from that area. So that's usually not too big of a challenge. And I would like to just say, sometimes people get a little confused about sound, just like all areas. Too much sound can be too much or not the right sounds. And, I always tell people, yes, you might have a little bit of a reaction in the beginning. And usually for the AMI 750, a person will feel sleepy and they feel like they need to go take a little 15-minute nap, that is great, because that means the body wants to integrate the sound, just calm down and tune out for a little bit so that your body can integrate with the sound. And, but, if you're having, like a lot of people go to places where it's very loud, and that can produce a totally different reaction within the brain and within the body. So, just use your common sense. When things don't feel good, you don't do that. There's a famous French physician, Alfred Tomatis. He said, there are just two types of sound that give you energy and sounds that deplete your energy. So you can tell, use yourself as your monitor, at least in the beginning, and note how you feel.
I love that. It lets you really kind of take such control over your own healing and do it in a way that really works for you. My goodness. We could talk all day, and I just really loved your book and the information that it has. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your work and your book and the devices and be part of your community?
Oh, I'd love for them to visit us at Cyma Technologies. Now that's spelled with a C. CYMA Technologies, TECHNOLOGIES.com. CymaTechnologies.com.
Well, Mandara, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you, Marianne. And if your listeners would like to email us through the website, we'll be happy to give them a free gift. Just tell us that you heard our interview today, and we'll give you access to a beautiful film, 90-minute film, professionally done, all about sound and vibration. We talk about the mystical side of cymatics as well as the healing images.
Well, thank you, Mandara. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Soundflower, The Journey to Marry Science and Spirit. Soundflower is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.